All right, welcome to this special edition of today of STV News Hub. We're looking at exactly what to do with children. Children's Day coincidentally comes up on the 27th of May, which is a Sunday. But we're going to do this earlier than that because we want to make sure that the children come first in the discussions and have a look at what are the real issues here. So this morning, access to water will be our concentration here. Godfrey Iloha is with Save the Children. He is the water, sanitation and hygiene advisor, worked several years and dealing with issues with respect to water. And we're having this short conversation early on, looking at all the issues, especially with water, sanitation, hygiene provision, access to potable water. Many of these issues oftentimes get relegated, but when you think of the numbers, statistics of children, for example, who do not have access to potable water, children who were brought down. You say you're working on a project now, Stop Diarrhea Initiative. A number of children are afflicted by waterborne diseases in this country. It's shambolic many times to see the response of government or state actors in putting an end to this. But tell us what your narrative will be with children with respect to when it comes to water.
First of all, at Save the Children, we believe every child deserves a future and their lives, voices and future potential should be fiercely protected at all costs. That is why we intervene in child health. Currently, in Lagos State, we are intervening in a project called Stop Diarrhea Initiative. We're trying to implement the 7-point plan of the WHO UNICEF intervention on managing diarrhea and preventing it. So, and the 7-point plan, huge on it, is access to water. So in that instance, we've been able to deal with issues of waterborne diseases. We have provided water, about 30 water facilities in the intervention local government. Water, without water, a lot of children come down with diarrheal diseases. In fact, we know that diarrhea is about the second highest killer for children under 5 years. And that is why we continue to emphasize that it is important that government at all levels prioritize the provision of access to water. Currently, the access gap is alarming. It is alarming indeed because even in Lagos State as we speak, there is a shortfall of about 300 million gallons per day that government admits people needs to have, for access to clean water. So without water, without access to clean water, children who ought to be in school spend hours across the country trying to fetch water. No. Mothers and caregivers who ought to be taking care of their children or having some input in the economy walk several distances to ensure that they get this life-changing commodity for their children.
According to some reports, so 1 out of 9 people lack access to safe water. I want to narrow it down a bit to the girl child. You have said the importance of water to our children. And why I'm talking about the girl child is because between the ages of, let's say, 8 and 14, this girl child starts her menstruation. Her puberty begins to show through menstruation. And some of them are out of school because of the access to clean water. Now, if you look at some documentaries done abroad, you see a lot of African children, carrying jerrycans, like you pointed out, and they're all struggling to fetch water from a particular public tap. How important is it that government takes these water projects very importantly? We've celebrated the World Water Day, and what is the outcome so far? We've been celebrating this World Water Day. Has the government done anything or enough to ensure that we have water, clean water in Nigeria?
Well, on the issue of government intervention, government, like we all know, in 2016 rolled out the collaborative mechanism they call the Partnership for Expanded water supply, sanitation and hygiene collaborative mechanism. You know, they want to drive the access to water, sanitation and hygiene. By the way, we can't talk about clean water access without talking about sanitation. They all go hand in hand, because for you to have clean water, it means there's no form of contamination and that contamination usually comes from fecal contamination, you know, and that's what causes diarrhea. So government at all levels needs to mobilize resources. For instance, the World Bank released a report last year. They called it the WASH Poverty Diagnostic Report. They said that for Nigeria to achieve, you know, the goal on the Sustainable Development Goal target, that it needs to invest, the Nigerian government needs to invest 3 times as much as it is investing right now. So, and yeah, there is, government says that, they're trying to do this, but we can all admit that it's not, government alone cannot do it. That is why even the private sector, the development partners, and then the households need to do something. What we do with how we manage the water, the little water that we have. In some instances, if you go to some households that have access to pipe water, you see this water sometimes wasting. You know, so there's a whole lot to be done around sensitizing people on the need to continue to make sure that water, as it comes, must be protected. And it's not just to get the water. You can get the water from where it is, from the source, clean, but what happens to it from the point it's transmitted to the point somebody uses it is a whole lot. So people from, you know, individuals, government needs to continue to do a lot to make sure that access is created. And then for the girl child, like you rightly mentioned, a lot of children, because of lack of water and sanitation in schools, for instance, sometimes when a girl child starts menstruating and there is no proper access in the school facility, when that period comes, that child is forced to be absent from the school at that particular time. And over a period of time, it affects that child growing up. You know, because if, for instance, a child is not able to participate in educational activity, it affects, you know, it has a multiplier effect on how that child grows up at the end of the day. And, you know, we say that when you train a child, a girl child, you train a nation. So we need to prioritize that.
But what do you think is predominant in the rural parts of the country?
You're talking about access, you know, geographic access. The rural population, a lot of things are missing. You know, infrastructure, people, economic activities are not available there. So a lot of poor people are there, and where you have a lot of poor people, you incidentally, usually you have poor access to water sanitation and hygiene facilities. So there also has to be some priority in making sure that the intervention in the rural areas is taken up, and that is what the PWASH partnership is going to be intervening basically in the rural areas to increase the access by 2030.
Let's talk about interventions. I'm particular about what you're doing in the suburb in Lagos, Shomolu local government area, to try to stop diarrhea. One of the carry-ons of rural, of urbanization through rural to urban migration, for example, where we have mega towns and cities, especially in Lagos, has been the pollution problem we're facing. So, I mean, water sources are compromised, and we have huge sanitation issues. I'm sure you would have found out in the Shomolu area. Children, unfortunately, at the lower end of the pyramid have been the most affected. Tell me what your goal is in terms of health goals, social goals, socioeconomic goals in dealing and addressing the water, let's just call it water crisis you're trying to use as a pilot project here.
Yeah, I mean, like we mentioned, access to water if increased, has a multiplying effect, especially on the economic, socio-economic life of the woman and children. Right. Like we said earlier, most of the problem that we have is a lot of people in those locations channel their waste into the environment, and this incidentally pollutes the water. You know, and for the number of people that have access to piped water in those locations is cannot be said to be more than 30%. Mm. So you have other people accessing their water from wells and then boreholes, and then and most of these boreholes and wells do not have a treatment component. Mm. So what we've done is that in the facilities that we provided, we ensure that we have both a treatment facility and then sometimes a solar facility to make sure that it continues to continue to work all the time. So it's about getting the water to be clean, and then we also continue to educate them on the need to make sure that at the point of use, even if the water source is not improved or clean, there are certain interventions that you can apply when you get water, even from well.
Which is the point I want you to really emphasize, because over the years we've seen a shift in paradigm when it comes to planning rather than planning for the people, you plan with the people. So in what ways are you planning with the people to ensure that they have access to water?
Definitely, we continue to sensitize them on getting their water treated at the point of use. There are several ways that they can do it. And again, forming community structures around water facilities that have been provided, it is also key. And that gets people to participate and own these facilities. Otherwise, if it's done, if these projects are provided, interventions are provided without community ownership, sometimes they don't last. So we also intervene in, as I mentioned earlier, trying to get households to know that they can treat their water in various ways. Once water is clear, the tendency is that it might not be polluted, even though there are germs that we can't see. But the clearer it is, the better or more possibility that it's not contaminated. So sometimes we've tried to intervene by giving water treatment products that they can use at the point of use. So